Welcome back to World Drum Club, everyone. I'm Kalani, and as a music therapist, one of the things that I have the privilege of being able to do, as well as the responsibility, is to help people in groups connect with each other, to help them feel valued, to help them feel grounded. And so I want to tell you about a recent experience I had at a treatment facility where I was facilitating group drumming and applying one of many of our clinical music therapy improvisation techniques. Welcome back. So if you're a facilitator, or even if you're just a musician that plays with other people, these ideas apply to you because they're fundamental and they are not exclusive to music therapy, but the techniques and how we use things, what we do as music therapists is the unique part of it. But these are things that you can understand and you can do and you can apply and you can notice in your own playing, whether you're just playing music, for fun, or it's your profession, like you're a performer, or you're a amateur musician, or just somebody, which means just somebody who loves something, and you're playing casually just for fun, right? This all applies. So in the group, I passed out a bunch of instruments. These are not musicians. These are just regular folks who are in a treatment program. And the idea was to have them all involved in something that would bring their attention into the present moment. So there is a mindfulness aspect. And I talk more about this kind of thing in my music mindfulness segments on the Tuesday Muse live stream every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time. You can join us for that on the channel. The idea is, A, bring people into the present moment by engaging them in a attractive activity, music making, give them something novel, maybe something they haven't played before, like bundled sticks or a certain type of rattle or a certain type of instrument, a drum or a shaker, a bell, something that would engage them physically and also engage them with each other. And that's what I want to touch on in this video. I want to touch on two concepts that are related. One is that I invited the people who had the drum. There was only one drum in the instruments that I handed out in a group of about 10 people. And I asked the drummer, the person with the drum, to start. And we would rotate. Everybody got a chance to play everything. But in every case, I asked the person with the drum to start. And that's because I wanted to, A, give everybody a sense of leadership and volition. In other words, they get to choose what they play. They're the leader. But also, B, give them a sense of responsibility and a way for them to express their individuality, right? So it's up to them, I'm not telling them what to play. It's up to them to choose what to play, how to play. And in many cases, they did do the typical thing, which is to play a steady beat, like just a steady rhythm. Some people didn't. Some people played some stuff that's a little fancier, and the group experienced both very simple, steady things and, things that were maybe a little more challenging to follow. And we can process that also. But the focus here is most people played an underlying, steady beat, usually like a medium tempo like this, like a walking tempo. And afterwards, I asked people about that experience in terms of how did it feel, what made it easy, what's important when we're playing music together. And they had an opportunity to fill in some of those questions, to answer some of those questions. And some of the responses that I got, and this is typical, was that it felt grounding to play, with a group of people and play something steady. It didn't change a lot, it just kind of went on, whatever the groove was, whatever the tempo, but something that was steady. And I wasn't grounding them. I wasn't playing the drum. I was playing a Native American style flute, and I was doing something else. But it's interesting that that word grounding came up, because that's literally the name of the technique when we play something that is structuring, it's steady, it's clear, it has a predictability to it, and the elements of rhythm in music, because there are many elements of music, but the element of rhythm is what we call the organizer and the energizer of music. And of course, this isn't anything new, but it's just worth pointing out in this context. Feeling grounded is super important for people in your life. It could mean just feeling safe and secure and, tethered to something that you value, that's substantial, as opposed to what is the opposite, right, of feeling grounded. Maybe it's I feel scatterbrained, or I can't focus, or I feel like I'm all over the place, right? Those are maybe ways people would express the opposite of feeling grounded. So what we can do in music is we can help people feel grounded. And for people who were in this particular type of program, that's very important. In addition to this idea of grounding is the idea of making connections, intermusical connections, within the group. And one of the things that somebody said that they were doing was listening to other people and what they were doing, and then doing what they were doing. And I was so glad to hear that, because I also do that as a technique. That's called synchronizing, or if it's exact, if it's generally the same, it's called matching. And if it's momentary, I use the term marking, meaning if somebody is, let's say there's a grounding rhythm that's being played, and somebody's playing just something kind of periodic, maybe they're just playing every once in a while, a little beep, beep. Then what I would probably do is incorporate that in my playing. And I would mark that. Beep, beep. And I might do other things in addition to that. It might be more, overt, or it might be subtle. Or I might use my voice. Beep, beep. And what that does is it communicates to the person who is playing a figure that one, you're hearing them, right? You're listening. And two, that what they're doing, and this is implied, I'm not saying it is the case in every case, but I'm saying it implies the idea that that is something that is of value. Because why? Because somebody else is doing it. Somebody's joining you. And three, so they're hearing you, they're valuing what you're doing, and three, they're supporting it because they're joining you. So it's literally like joining somebody else's, movement or direction or idea, reinforcing that idea. And that's also really important for people to feel valued. And these are music therapy techniques, like I said. They're things that also happen naturally in music. But in a music therapy context, these are purposefully used. They're used in a certain way, in a certain time. And they're also used within a greater context. So it's important, and I'll just say this, that it's important to realize that doing these things doesn't mean you're doing music therapy. Just like if I put a bandage on someone, it doesn't mean that I'm practicing medicine. It just means that I'm, doing something that also does exist within a larger profession, one that I'm not a part of. But these are not exclusive to music therapy. In other words, music therapy, this is not the only place they happen. Of course, music educators, casual musicians, facilitators, you can do the same thing. But they're just very powerful techniques. They're things to notice because if you're not noticing them happening, then are they, potent, and can you use them? So I think part of what I'm trying to communicate to you is that these are normal things that tend to happen. They can also be promoted intentionally by a therapist or facilitator, and they can also be noticed and identified in a group by the facilitator. So it's not something that the facilitator or the leader has to do, but it's something that they could notice. And that's where your awareness as a musician or a teacher or facilitator, whatever it is, comes into play. I was actually playing the Native American style flute while a lot of this drumming was going. And what I would do is I would mark or synchronize with people's playing during, let's say there's a 3 or 4 minute, interlude, a playing session before we rotate. And I would make sure that I kind of connected with different people and reinforce what they're doing. So that's what I was doing, in addition to providing some melodic, content, something sort of interesting that's different from what they were all doing. But let's just review. And I hope this information is useful. Hope it makes sense. If it is, and if it does make sense, please give it a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell for notifications. That's really important because then you'll get notified when there's a new video, new content here on World Drum Club. But let's review. So we have this idea of grounding, and in music, that means something predictable, something steady. It means a safe place. In other words, creating the container, sometimes we call it, or the platform musically. And how do we do that? It's very simple. We just create, through our playing, we create this predictable kind of structure, right? So if you can think of it as a place to be, to play your music, on top of. So that's what we call grounding. Personally, it can have the effect of calming people, bringing people into a sense of security, and allows them to then place their own expressions within that container or on top of that platform, because it is literally like a place for them, right? It's like you're creating the playground, or the grounding creates the play area, and then you play on top of it, right? And I think you guys get that, right? So you play whatever you want, but the ground is always there instead of not there, right? We don't want the ground to fall out beneath people's feet. So there's this musical structure that is simple, predictable, repetitive. And then there's the sense of, okay, I can be here, and this is a safe place for me to play. And yeah, it just feels good. And if you're creating grounding rhythms, I recommend that they are steady, simple. I think some of the most effective grounding rhythms are at what I would call a natural body tempo. In other words, like a walking tempo, or maybe a breathing tempo, or a heartbeat tempo, but something that feels like you could easily move to it, in a natural way. So not super fast, not super slow. That'd be my opinion. So somewhere between, let's say, 80, 85 beats a minute up to like 120, maybe 125, 130 would be pretty quick, but somewhere in that, 100 beats a minute, give or take 20 beats a minute either way. All right, and then the other main concept is this idea of synchronizing or matching, or what I call marking, which is just a momentary, picking up on what somebody's doing just for a moment, kind of looping back to them. And it's a way of creating connections between people via the music, but also it implies that interpersonal connection. So it's an intermusical connection that implies an interpersonal connection, right? I hope that makes sense. So that's a way for people to, again, going back to the beginning, to feel present, to be present, and to feel seen, to be validated, to connect with one another, to share ideas, to gain insights and ideas from others by attending to what's happening in your environment, which are all really great practices for life in general. So the implications are pretty deep in a therapeutic context, but even just in a fun music making, music for aesthetics context, it all works. It's all valuable. If you like this kind of thing, if this is of interest to you, you could pursue more by joining my course, which has to do with the book, The Way of Music, Creating Sound Connections in Music Therapy. There's a whole program for that course, or a course for that book, at patreon.com/Kalani. There's many more techniques than the ones that I've shared with you here. If you are a music therapist, hopefully you know a lot of these, but there are maybe some that you don't know. And if you're a teacher or a facilitator or just a recreational musician, and this kind of thing excites you, then join me over there, patreon.com/Kalani. You can sign up for the courses tier and get full access to that course and all the other courses over there. So there's a link below. Make sure you click that before you click away. You guys go out and make some great music, play for each other, brighten someone's day through music. And thanks for stopping by the channel. I appreciate it. I'm Kalani. This is World Drum Club. We'll see you in another video.